The topic for our today's presentation is Dalit politics and movement after independence. The introduction. Dalit means all those people of different castes and subcastes among the depressed classes who were traditionally subjected to invidious discriminations on grounds of untouchability and categorized as the untouchables, downtrodden exterior classes, depressed classes, or scheduled castes. The organizational or institutional efforts made by Dalit leaders for the liberation of the downtrodden masses could be termed as Dalit movement. It is the movement to regain self-respect and equal human status in the society. It is the result of the consciousness of Dalits of their own identity as human beings, equally equipped with physical and mental capacities as other human beings, and equally entitled to enjoy all the human rights without any infringement, abridgment, or limitations. So Dalit movement is basically an organizational efforts made by Dalit leaders in order to uplift or regain the self-respect and have equal status, human status in the society. The causes for Dalit movement. Point 1. It is the result of the constant hatred being generated from centuries from the barbaric activities of the upper castes of India. They were deprived of higher training of mind and were denied social, economic, and political status. The division of labor led to their inequality and exploitation. The caste system generated Dalit life into a pathogenic condition where occupations changed into castes. For centuries, Dalits were excluded from the mainstream society no, and were only allowed to pursue menial occupations. They were pushed to the outer areas of villages, whereas the mainland was occupied by the upper castes. Many of the atrocities were committed in the name of religion, like system of Devadasi, that is, pouring of molten lead into the ears of Dalit who happened to listen to some mantra. To regain the stronghold on people, education was monopolized. This made the Dalits rise and protest against the inhuman practices demand for basic rights of equality. With the introduction of Western language and with the influence of Christian missionaries, the Dalits began to come across the ideals of equality and liberty, and thus began the Dalit movement in modern times. Educated Dalits began to talk about the of the poor and about exploitation and humiliations from the upper caste. Dimensions of Dalit movement. Point 1. Sanskritization. Sanskritization is a process in which the lower caste people try to adopt the way of living of the upper castes like the Brahmins. Some Dalit leaders followed the process of Sanskritization to elevate themselves to the higher position in caste hierarchy. They tried to adopt established cultural norms and practices of the higher caste. They adopted the Brahmin manners, including vegetarianism, putting sandalwood paste on forehead, wearing sacred thread, etc. Imitation of the high caste manners by Dalits was an assertion of the right to equality. So they tried to imitate the lifestyle of the Brahmins to elevate their status in the society. Adi Hindu movement. Treating Dalits as outside the fourfold Varna system and describing them as outcasts or Panchama gave rise to a movement called Adi Hindu movement. Certain sections of Dalit leadership believed that Dalits were the original inhabitants of India and they were not Hindus. Aryans or Brahmins who invaded this country forcibly imposed untouchability on the original inhabitants of this land. They believed that if Hinduism was discarded, untouchability would automatically come to an end. That the Dalits began to call themselves Adi Andhras in Andhra, Adi Karnataka in Karnataka, Adi Dravidas in Tamil Nadu, Adi Hindus in Uttar Pradesh, and Adi Dharmis in Punjab. So Adi Hindu movement was was a movement which was initiated by certain section of the Dalit leaderships who believed that Dalits were the original inhabitants of India and they were not Hindus, so they were against Hinduism as Hinduism imposed untouchability on the lower section of the people. With the purpose of getting rid of untouchability and to develop their moral and financial conditions. Dalits were mostly attracted to other religions like Buddhism, Sikhism, Muslim, uh, Islam, in which they did not believe caste system, whereas in Hinduism they were uh, they were treated as untouchable, so they followed the route of conversion in order to uplift their financial or social statuses. A good number of Dalits were converted to Christianity, especially in Kerala. Some of the Dalits, especially in Punjab, were converted to Sikhism, known as Mahavis, Namdaris, Kavirpanthis, etc. Dr. Ambedkar himself converted to Buddhism along with millions of followers at Nagpur in 1956. Next, Ambedkar's work in post-independence period. Post-independence, Ambedkar was invited to serve as the nation's first law minister, which he accepted. On 29th August, he was appointed chairman of the Constitutional Drafting Committee, charged by the Assembly to write India's new constitution. The text prepared by Ambedkar provided constitutional guarantee and protections for a wide range of civil liberties for individual citizens, including freedom of religion, the abolition of untouchability, and the outlawing of all forms of discrimination. Ambedkar made sure that the constitutional provisions were in favor of the Dalit people uh, and it focused the abolition of untouchability. He also argued for extensive economic and social rights for women and also won the Assembly's support for introducing a system of reservations of jobs in the civil services, schools, and colleges for members of SCs and STs. Ambedkar resigned from the cabinet in 1951 following the stalling in parliament of his draft of the Hindu Code Bill. He was appointed to the Rajya Sabha in March 1952 and remained as a member till death. Around 1950, he turned his attention fully to Buddhism and travelled to Ceylon, which is now called Sri Lanka, to attend a meeting of the World Fellowships of Buddhists. In 1955, he founded the Bharatiya Bauddha Mahasabha. He completed his work, the Buddha and his Dhamma, in 1956. In 1956, in a formal public ceremony at Nagpur, he, along with his wife and his around 5 lakh supporters, were converted into Buddhism. Next, Dalit Panthers Movement. Dalit Panthers Movement is a social organization founded by Namdev Dasal in April 1972 in Mumbai. It was inspired by Black Panther Party, a revolutionary movement amongst African Americans which emerged in the United States and functioned from 1966 to 1982. They called themselves Panthers because they were supposed to fight for their rights like panthers and not get suppressed by the strength and might of their oppressors. The members were young men belonging to New Buddhists and scheduled castes. The controversy over the article Kala Swatantrata Divas, that is Black Independence Day, by Dhel was published in Sadhana in 1972, which created a sensation and publicized the Dalit Panthers through Maharashtra. So Dalit Panthers was organization which was founded by Namdev Dasal, and it was inspired by a party called Black Panther of the US, and the members belonging to this organization were young men belonging to the Neo Buddhist and scheduled caste. Gradually, many Panther branches sprang up spontaneously in parts of Maharashtra. The movement was a radical departure from earlier Dalit movements as its initial thrust on militancy through the use of rustic arms and threats, gave the movement a revolutionary color. They linked their struggles to the struggles of all oppressed people over the globe. The clear-cut leftist stand reflected by this document ran counter to the accepted legacy of Ambedkar as projected. The Naxalite movement saw a potential ally in the Panthers and tried to forge a bond right at the level of formulation of policies and programs of the latter. The Panthers' militancy by and large remained confined to the speeches and writing. Left in politics. In 1981, Kasiram quit his job in DRDO and, together with his colleagues established the SCs, STs, and OBCs and Minor Employees Welfare Association. Through this association, attempts were made to look into the problems and harassment of the above mentioned employees and bring out an effective solution for the same. Another main objective was to educate and create awareness about the caste system. In 1973, Kasiram, again with his colleagues, established the BAMCEF, that is, Backward and Minority Communities Employee Federation. The first operating office was opened in Delhi in 1976 with the motto Educate, Organize and Agitate. This is this served as a base to spread the ideas of Ambedkar and his beliefs. In 1980, he created a roadshow named Ambedkar Mela, which showed the life of Ambedkar and his views through pictures and narrations. In 1981, he founded the Dalit Sosit Sabha Sangharsh Samiti DS4 to fight against the attacks on the workers who were spreading awareness on the caste system. In 1984, he established a full-fledged political party known as the Bahujan Samaj Party. Power as a means to attain dignity. As power can be cut by only power, Phule and Ambedkar gave the main emphasis on the education of the Dalits as it will bestow them with reason and judgment capacity, political power, socio-economic status, and a life of dignity. They knew that the political strategy of gaining power is either an end in itself or a means to the other ends. If the Dalits have power, then they do not have to go begging to the upper castes. The Dalits require power to control the economic scenario and thereby the politics of the country. Ambedkar contested with Gandhi to give Dalits their right to equality. He gave the call educate, organize, and agitate. Education could help to know the truth of Brahmanism in Indian society and will make them agitate against caste-based inhuman practices. Only when agitation begins can the Dalit be able to attain power and win the movement against exploitation. So Ambedkar mainly believed that being educated is being powerful, so he tried to educate as many Dalits so they can be more aware, be more knowledgeable, and they do not have to beg the upper caste of the society. Lastly, we would like to conclude with the conclusion. Uh, Dalit movement, social revolution aimed for social change, replacing the age-old hierarchical Indian system based on the democratic ideals of liberty, equality, and social justice, has begun much earlier, became intense in the 1970s, and began to dim at present. One reason behind this, as pointed out by Uma Chakravarti, is that the academicians are not paying much attention. Books on Dalit movement are written, but these books do not reflect the actual things and are written keeping in view the Brahmin elites. No one wants to confront with those who have power. Besides this, the minds of the people are Brahmanized through hegemony. Yet, another vital issue is that the movement lacks people from all the communities of Dalits. For instance, in Maharashtra, the Mahars dominated the movement. The other Dalit communities like the monks, chamars, were not actively involved in the movement. As Campbell pointed out that the Mahas and Chamars had their traditional duties whereby they could somehow manage their food, but the Mahars did not have any traditional duty top protest, which made them to protest. At present, there came up many new issues. The Dalits who got power became the dolls in the hands of the Brahmins. Many of them tend to imitate the Brahmins, changing their surnames and thus identity. They are ashamed of being called Dalits, which make them to discriminate against their own kith and kins. It should be noted that the Dalit movement is against Brahmanism and not Brahmins. The Brahmanism is a mental state which accepts superiority of one man over other man. It gives more respect and profit for the caste which is up in the ladder of caste system. And it goes down in ladder, resources and respect also decreases. Its contribution for the Dalits, which is lowest of all the castes, is nothing but exploitation, jeering, and slavery. This mental state of Brahmanism not only exists in Brahmins but also in Sudras, who simply shape the ideas of Brahmanical practices without testing them with scientific temperament and reason. India got independence, but the Dalits are still humiliated. Untouchability is abolished, but injustice practices are not. Today, to wear good clothes is not forbidden, but to get a good job is. In the name of reforms and social uplift, today's political and social systems are pitting one group against the others, showing hatred and perpetuating a sense of rejection from the past. Education is the only remedy for such discrimination. Thus, the movement for social change will succeed only when all the Dalits unite together to fight for equality. However, they should accept that caste that is deeply rooted in people's mind cannot be erased. So, social change would mean to get rid of discriminatory practices and get rights necessary for the upliftment of the backward section of society, that is the Dalits. The references are as follows. Thank you.